Hello class, and welcome to this second installment of network cabling. I am in our new lab here at the Lenovo headquarters in Morrisville, North Carolina, and I wanted to show you the patch panel that we visited the other day now that many or most of the cable connections have been terminated. You can see that this is a little different than last time we looked at this MDF panel. Everything has been what's called dressed. These cables have been dressed, which means that you see them in nice tight bundles like this with Velcro attached to them. These cables have been combed and pulled and have been routed through the MDF panel to their individual punch downs, which this is the back side of the punch downs. We'll go around to the front. And just like we saw in the previous video, we have different VLANs, different subnets. These are separated out by different tasks for the most part. So here is what a mostly complete MDF panel looks like. These are all copper settings down here. This is all copper. This is fiber. And you notice that it looks a little different, obviously. Here is a special panel that is used to make fiber connections to the main trunk. All of these connections that you see up top here are for the lab. Connections down here that are made in this panel are the ones that actually connect to the outside world. So let's say, for example, this says Rack J right here. So all these connectors belong to Rack J. If you need to make a connection from Rack J to the outside world or to the building fiber, you would run what's called a jumper from one of these connections from here down to one of these jumpers below. And that way you'd be able to get out to the world. As it is, you could also use, if you wanted to keep something in the lab, you could jumper something from here. This says Rack J to Rack B or Rack F. If you wanted to make an in-lab connection only, which might be used for a variety of tests. But I'll go ahead and close this panel here. So this is what the server room side of the panel looks like. So what will happen in here is that as the servers are installed in these enterprise racks behind me, the big black boxes we're looking at right now, as the servers are installed in here, let me show you this rack. This is a legacy rack, meaning that we've moved it into our new lab. You can see it's got lots of cables hanging down. Well, once this is fully installed, all these loose cables that you see in here, these blue cables and these green cables, these are your network cables, they are going to be replaced such that, and this is I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is a switch, and this is a switch. These cables will be routed from these switches to the overhead rack, because the servers are going to sit right below pretty much where this shaft is on the floor right now. That's where these racks are going to be installed permanently. The network connections will go into the rack overhead and then be fed down this panel, down the rack, to the front side of this panel and plugged into the corresponding port. And again, that will allow the servers that are in this room to either get out to other servers that are in this lab or be routed to the outside internet. So a couple other things of note in this room. Here are some individual patch panels. Okay, let me zoom in here a little bit. These are individual patch panels. This is where, let's see if you can see the edge here, these grooves here are where the individual wires are terminated using this tool here. This is called a punch down tool. So it's got a special cutting edge that when you press a cable into one of these notches, you push down until it clicks, until it makes a sound like this. well, I can't push it down on this cardboard box hard enough, but it makes a click sound which simultaneously cuts the cable and presses it into this connector with enough force that it becomes permanent. So it accomplishes two tasks in one. Running cables, putting an infrastructure cable does generate a lot of waste, but this is the only way that you can do this sort or accomplish this sort of job. Again, for infrastructure cabling, everything is done by hand. It must be done specific for every location, so seeing this sort of leftover is not at all uncommon. Most of this cable that you see down here will either be recycled or used for making patch cables, shorter cables that would be used on the front side of this panel to connect to servers. More than likely, however, what will happen to this cable here is that it will be recycled. Generally speaking, for patch cables, which are short run cables, maybe 7, 10, 20 feet, the better idea for cables that are that short, because you usually need many of them, is to buy them pre-made. So taking a collection of cables like this and making your own would not only be time consuming, but you're also introducing the potential for failure, because given a large enough sample size, let's say you make 100 cables by hand, and there's a good chance that 3, 4, 5 of them are going to be damaged or compromised in some way. So if you need to buy a patch cable, generally speaking, although it may be slightly more expensive, it's a good idea to go ahead and buy them pre-made. Next step, I'd like to show you where the cables are going from the overhead racks in this room, where they're feeding out of here into our lab next door. So I'll be right back. So here we are in the lab size, and I don't know if you can make it out from this vantage point or not, but you see we have fiber and copper coming out. The fiber is the light green cable, the copper, the Ethernet, is in the blue cable, and this is the elevated wire rack on the lab side of the server room. So we can see that their wires are coming out of the MDF panel, and they are being routed to various places in the lab. And in this particular installation, every setup is terminated with what you see with these black cables here. I'll pull one out to give you an example. Here we have ports 74, 75, and 76. So the person sitting at this workstation has 4 network ports that they can use to get to the building internet, and if those ports are configured for outside access, then they can reach the wider internet. So again, for this particular installation, and of course every installation is different, this is how we've chosen to distribute our network connectivity. So let me show you another panel. This is the type of panel that you would see or that we're installing in a server rack. Again, I'm showing you right now the cable rack, the complete run, and how these things are routed around. So here is an example of a panel that would be installed in a server. And these are just like the panels that are installed in the server room that we just left. These are installed in individual server racks. So in this case, this is for rack D, and we have 24 ports that have all been terminated. So this will have connectivity from here, from what will be this rack over here actually, back to the server room. And then on the server room side, at the MDF panel, we'll use short patch panels to connect the server rack to either inside access only, meaning inside this lab, or to the wider internet. But there's a lot of flexibility in doing it this way. So again, this is the other side. What you're seeing here is the other side of the infrastructure cabling for this lab installation. Okay, that's all I have for today. Thought you might find this to be interesting. Thanks for watching.